So welcome out to Time with Uncle Sam. I'm sitting here with Mishelle, and we're going to have a nice conversation about some things going on in the county. Specifically, your story. You ran for clerk a couple years ago.
I did.
Or tried to.
2019 for the 2020 election.
Right. So one of the things that is a frustration to me in politics, and this is on the right and the left, and it's the current political climate we're in. So I'm not blaming any one party or any one person. It's just where I think we are. There's a lot of people who want to talk at the people, and you've got the Republican side talking in this big grand scheme of things, and the Democrat side. And I don't know if the Democrats and the Republicans, or the conservatives and the liberals, or the South and the North, or the East and the West, or however you want to divide up the halves, right? I don't know if those people can actually sit down and come to progress going forward. I think usually it winds up being backdoor deals, but I think when it comes to local government, I think that conversation is, instead of pulling left and right, people who really want progress, who want to improve where we live, it's our community, we can all pull forward together. But if we don't have conversation, if we don't have transparency, if we don't, and not just talk about transparency, but legitimately talk about some of the issues, not maliciously towards any one person, but talking about and dealing with the issues that are going on in our government and locally and how to improve, then I think problems just keep getting swept under the rug. And if we keep sweeping things under the rug, we're not going to have, we have the appearance of a clean house, but we really don't have a clean house. And so we met today for the first time in person, but we've talked on the phone once or twice.
Twice.
Did you got my contact information from somebody on Facebook, or?
Actually, someone reached out to me and said you wanted to have a conversation with me, so then I text you.
Okay,
and
gotcha.
Then we
we had a
forth,
couple phone calls,
right,
etc.
called.
So I had asked you. We were starting halfway into the phone call, and I'm going, this needs to be a conversation that everybody else needs to have access to. And so I am just as excited to finish our original phone conversation, because I like hearing things for the first time. And I hate putting on a show, but I like authenticity. And so if we can just have an authentic conversation about, there's still questions I have about you.
Mm-hmm.
So why don't you start with your story, and we'll just get into this, and we'll see how long this goes, and go from there. So you're originally born and raised Dearborn County?
Yeah, born and raised.
Okay. Your parents were born and raised too, or moved here? What?
No, my dad was from Berea, Kentucky, and
Okay.
my mother was from McKee, Kentucky. But
Okay.
my dad owned a business in Lawrenceburg
Okay.
for many, many years.
What kind of business?
He was a mechanic. He
Okay.
owned a septic tank business as well.
All right.
So, been in the community for a very, very long time.
Okay.
Moved away to Arizona.
What was your dad's name?
Rowlett, or
Rowlett,
Red
okay.
Rowlett.
Okay,
Rowlett's
gotcha.
Garage in Lawrenceburg.
Where was that at?
It was in two places. It was on High Street
Okay.
in Lawrenceburg, and then I can't remember the name of the other street. But it was on the main drag at one point, and then they moved it over behind U.S. Bank. There's now condos there currently, so you couldn't look at that and know that there had ever been a garage
gotcha.
there.
All right.
Yeah, and then once he left Lawrenceburg, he opened up a business right out here on Mount Sinai on 350.
Okay.
Rowlett's Garage right on Short Ridge.
Oh yeah. Okay.
So-
Yeah. All right. So local raised by business owners. Where'd you graduate high school from?
South Dearborn.
All right, sweet. So right across the street.
Right across
there we
the
go.
street.
Go Knights. What did you do coming out of high school? You moved away, correct, for a while?
I did. I moved.
Okay.
I moved to Arizona.
Okay. So
lived-
coming out of high school, you moved college. What was the reason for Arizona?
I moved to
Other
Arizona.
than no humidity like Indiana?
Right. I moved to Arizona in 1991 after my mother had passed away. I had an
Okay.
older sister that was living out there. She was the oldest.
Okay.
Debbie was more like a motherly figure to me. I have
Okay.
8 siblings.
Oh, you do?
Well, there's 8 of us. I should say 7.
What number are
siblings.
you?
I'm the last one.
Okay.
I always joke with my siblings and tell them that mom and dad saved the
Best for last. All right, so I come from a family of 8 kids as well, and I'm number 6. So I've got my younger sister Lydia,
Mm-hmm.
who incidentally was thrown off the ballot as well. She was the last sibling too. So I'll have to introduce you guys.
Oh, great.
So,
looking forward to it.
I like big families. My dad, I love everybody in my family, but I always liked my mom's side of the family. I was close to my dad,
Mhm.
but I always liked my mom's side of the family better because you had options. She came from a family of 7 kids, dairy farming family in Illinois. My dad had 1 sister who had 2 daughters. There wasn't a whole lot of cousin play. I had like 50 first cousins on the other side of the family.
Right.
So family get-togethers. It was softball out behind the farm. It was I always had plenty of friends to play with. So I'm always a big fan of big families. So anyway, okay. So youngest of 7 or 8 kids, moved out to Arizona.
Moved to Arizona in 1991.
Okay.
Got married, had children. I was going through a divorce, and my father was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease.
Okay.
And I made the decision to move back to the area to spend as much time as possible with my dad, and to be here to help care for him.
Yeah.
So when I moved back,
what year did you move back?
I moved back in May of 2018.
Okay.
So
coming up on 6 years ago?
It'll be 6 years. So when I moved back, I was talking to some people about,
in your time, so you were gone from 91 to 18, so that's 27 years. Did you ever come back to the area much?
Oh,
Did
yeah.
you stay?
All the time.
Okay.
Stayed in very close contact with a lot of my friends. We have a girls group that we all hang around with.
So you moved home. It wasn't like you started over in 2018. You were just back with family.
Right.
And
Back
friends.
with family, back with friends. Back in the area with my other siblings.
Do your other siblings all live here still?
I have one brother that lives in Germany, and then I have my sister that I moved out there.
I studied German in high school.
Yeah. And my one sister who lived in Arizona, she's actually half the year in Arizona now, and then half the year here in Dearborn County.
Okay, so family's still here, last name's still here,
That is
connections,
correct.
everything else.
And my brother actually, Tom Rowlett, is a Lawrenceburg City Councilman.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Didn't know that.
Yes.
I don't know much about Lawrenceburg City government.
Yeah.
I live over here in Aurora, and Lawrenceburg is Lawrenceburg, and they can do their thing, and I do my thing, and I'm not even involved. I'm not even. Aurora city limits, I think, are like 100 yards down the road, so I don't even vote in Aurora city limits. In the county, but I didn't recognize the name. Okay, so you moved back in 2018, but it's not like you just moved to the area in 2018. You're back within family, you're well networked, etc. Okay, gotcha. So getting back into the area, and your dad has since gone home.
Absolutely, he passed away in 2021.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah. So you ran for clerk in 2020, and so getting back, I interrupted you. You got back in the area in 2018, May of 2018. So then in those 2 years, what was moving back? I mean, probably full schedule, your primary caregiver for your dad at that point?
I was working, and then it got to be too much, so then I became the full-time caregiver for my father. And actually, I was the full-time caregiver for my father when I was running for clerk of the court in 2019.
Okay. So what did you do for work? Did you have a career out in Arizona as well, or a full-time mom?
No,
Which full-time mom is a career. That's what I want my wife to do, etc.
Yeah. No, I definitely had a career. I was a field training manager.
Okay.
And field training manager for Denny's restaurants. I don't know if you're familiar with Denny's restaurants.
1 o'clock in the morning, you get food and coffee, etc.
Yep, absolutely. Right. So I had been working as a field training manager for them, and then
did that job require you to travel quite a bit?
That job did require me to travel quite a bit, and then I transitioned into a franchise business consultant for Denny's Corporation, and I actually I had 13 states in that position. So I was a road warrior. Monday through Friday, I was out of town and would come back on the weekends. So.
Wow. Okay. So, so you would have filed in, or you were starting to run in the end of 19. Would have been 2020. You would have filed for clerk.
No, in 2019, I would have filed to run in the 2020 election, May of 2020.
May of 2020
Correct.
Primary. Okay, gotcha. So did you ever think you'd be, when you moved back to the area, did you ever plan on getting involved in government? Have you ever been involved in government out in Arizona?
I was not involved in government in Arizona, but I did a lot of things for the school board. My ex-husband and I both ran the booster club for football.
Okay.
I did a lot of dog rescue and things like that. So I did a lot of things with the community.
Just not in government.
Just not in government. And when I moved back, I was thinking, I want to become more involved in the community. I had a couple of people reach out to me, and ask me if I would be interested in running for the clerk of the court.
Okay.
And
But your plan wasn't to leave beautiful Arizona to come back for Dearborn County Clerk's Office court position.
absolutely not. No, that just
There's
kind
not
of
there's not some conspiracy about how
No.
good the pay is down there, etc.
no, not at all.
Okay, so what? So then people started asking you to run.
Yeah, I had a couple people reach out to me and ask me initially, and I didn't think too much of it. And I'm like, yeah, I don't really think I'm interested in that. I kind of have my hands full right now.
Yeah.
And then I had a couple other people reach out to me, and I started to see a trend in people saying to me, hey, I heard through the grapevine that someone asked you to run for clerk of the court. Is that something that you're really interested in? And I'm like, no, actually, as a matter of fact, I'm not sure how that even started, but it just perpetuated and
Right.
perpetuated it, and then more people started asking me, and then more people were saying, Mishelle, there's a lot of stuff that goes on. I don't know if you're aware. They started talking to me about the shuffling of, the clerk of the court would be in the office for 2 terms, then the treasurer would be in the office for 2 terms.
Because they're term limited.
I don't know if it's because they're term limited or not, but then they would flip flop, or they
So
would,
they'd sub all the players around. Okay.
yes. And I'm just sitting here going, what? I'm like, I don't understand the reasoning behind that. Like, I was completely flabbergasted with some of the things that I was
People are
hearing.
telling you. Right.
And at one point, quite a few people said to me, they're going to give you a run for your money. They're going to fight you on this, and this is not going to be
Who was
easy.
the they were referring to? Because I heard that when I ran for Senate. Same thing. It's like they, and I'm like, they who? Who's they? They them? I'm like, I feel like this is some stupid Disney cartoon. Who's the they? This mysterious hand of all being power. I'm like, do people want to live under fear and tyranny? And like, this is America. If you got a problem, get involved. Like, who's the they? Did anybody ever tell you who the they was?
They really didn't come right out and say who it was, and I'm just like, no, this doesn't. This
is Dearborn
happen.
County, right?
No, this doesn't. No, this cannot be true. But they said to me, there will be people who will try to persuade you not to do this, or they will fight you so that you cannot come in office. And I'm like, the people are the ones who vote us into office. So I'm not sure how this
for public works.
Correct. So I was not too worried about it. As a matter of fact,
Was it like a shrug off, or did you think weird of those people? I mean, like.
I don't want to say that I thought weird of them, but it was kind of
Because
like.
here's my reaction. Whenever I heard the same thing, I thought, that's just people who want an excuse for why they don't need to get off their old rusty dusty and go get involved. I don't know if I agree with that now, but as somebody who was new to the politics of Dearborn County, and somebody who never really cared about the politics of Dearborn County, because I thought it's community here. It's customers of mine. It's people like so-and-so knows so-and-so in government, and relatively, I mean, I heard always it was the Lawrenceburg corruption, the boat money. There was always some kind of, I've got family who live out in Ripley County. And so we go out and hang out with friends in Ripley County. It's 8 minutes up the road. You hear what happened in Lawrenceburg? I'm like, no, don't care. I live in Aurora, right? Like, Lawrenceburg can do what Lawrenceburg wants. That's Lawrenceburg's choice. I don't go tell somebody else what kind of carpet to put in their living room. I can decide what kind of rug I want in my house. Somebody else can decide what kind of county government they have. But it's always like, over the years, it was like, oh, did you hear about this? And there's some kind of corruption down there. It's just so corrupt. And it's just a good old boy club down there. But like, I just never paid attention to it. So that was my kind of general perception. But as somebody who was new to politics, I didn't have a informed formulated opinion on the current powers that be, so to speak. So when people would say that to me, it just I would shrug it off as like it was an excuse why people didn't want to be involved.
Yeah.
So what was your reaction though when people are saying that to you? You've got to have some kind of thought going through your mind.
Mine was very similar to yours, and you just said it right. When I would ask them, give me more, explain to me what you mean by that, right? One of the terms that I heard very frequently, and you just mentioned it, was the good old boys club.
Yeah.
The good old boys club they'll stop you. They will put the brakes on that. And I'm like, how? I don't understand
I'm
how
a free citizen.
Yeah, how is that even possible? They're not the ones who are voting me in. It's the constituents.
Right.
I apologize.
You're all good. If we were on live TV, maybe it would matter, but this is just a conversation in the living room. So, okay. So you had people tell you, and you decided. Was there a deciding factor that said, I'm running? Was there a tipping point that put, I mean, from going, I don't care to be involved to, well, but I have a heart to be involved in the community. I'm moving back to the area, so I want to be involved. I got time, you know, situation with your dad. These are some of the last moments you get with him, cherishing those moments, but knowing there's a phase after that, place to serve, and not thinking government, but now thinking government. What was the transition of, no, I'm not interested, to now I'm going to start seriously thinking, and then it pushes you over the edge of going, okay, I'm signing up, I'm doing this?
Well, that actually started when the more people were telling me that they were going to prevent me from running one way or another. I'm like, this cannot be true, right? So then the challenge to me was, I have to follow this through now.
This is pre-2020 and 2022 and 2024 with all of this hocus pocus with Trump and the district attorneys and all this kind of prosecution and all this other stuff that's gone on in Carrie Lake out in Arizona. That probably hit home close with you. Yeah? She ran in 2022?
She did.
So this is this is 2019 coming into, I think the filing is January of 2020. January 10th to the February, unless they changed the dates on that, but that's what it was this last time.
Yes.
So you would have been making your decision to run by December or November of 2019.
Correct.
You decided?
Yes.
Okay. What was that tipping point then?
It was basically a challenge to myself to prove that, no, this doesn't happen in Dearborn County, Indiana.
Okay.
After being away for so many years, I'm like, no, this can't be true.
Right.
So, I'm like, I'm going to do it. At this point, I'm going to do it. A lot of people had asked me to do it, and although I had no prior experience with being the clerk of the court, I have worked for multiple Fortune 500 companies, managed many people, and I felt like that was a job that I was capable of doing, and I had the experience that would transfer over to being the clerk of the court.
So, one question I just thought of. When people talk about, when you're looking to hire positions, you can teach a skill set,
Mm-hmm.
but you can't mold a character trait. Somebody has to bring a character to you. And I'm not talking about, we all think about the character and like morality, right, wrong, but character, when you have like somebody who can just handle a lot emotionally and stay calm under pressure, that's a character trait,
Mm-hmm.
right? When you say, hey, don't walk across that old barn roof, the floor in that old barn, why? Because the character's not compromised. It's standing now, but you put pressure on that, you're going to find out who you are under pressure is who you really are. You're going to find out what the character of that building actually is. Is it strong? Can it withstand or not? So when you think of the characteristics of somebody that would make a good clerk, what are some of those characters?
Well, I think you have to be somebody who can handle stress.
Okay.
Right? I think you have to be somebody who can act very quickly on your feet. You can think quickly.
Okay.
There's a job description that you're going to go by, right, that tells you how to do this job, but there's going to be circumstances that you may have never experienced before, and you have to be a strategic thinker. You have to be someone who can make quick decisions that are not going to compromise what you have going on with all the levels below you.
Right.
So, and that's something that I have done in many of the positions that I have held before. Which is why, I said, although I have no experience being a clerk of the court, I have ran many businesses, multi-million-dollar businesses. I'm pretty positive I could, with some training, run Dearborn County Courthouse.
And I believe all of the, when you get elected to certain things, there's certain trainings that you get access to through the state or whatever. Even when you go into legislative, I had legislative training from other things, but there's some classes you can go through to learn the different things of what you have to do, etc. I'm sure there's kind of a peaceful transition of power. I think that was one of the things that irritated the most whenever Trump ran in 2016. People would say, well, and if you can't tell, I like Trump. And for a lot of reasons, but this isn't about Trump. Point is, though, it was the same thing. Character traits of him looking, going, run these companies. I know how to help America win. I'm tired of nobody doing it, so I'm going to do it. And I'm tired of saying this for all these years, and so I'm getting involved. But people would say, well, he needs to be a senator or governor because he doesn't know how government works. Well, the heck yeah, he does. He knows how to negotiate. He knows how to be an executive. So those character traits, whether people like what he did or not, or how he did it, he was very effective at moving his agenda forward.
Mm-hmm.
And same thing about Obama. Whether people like what he did, what he stood for, or how he did it, he was effective at moving his agenda forward. The question is, there were two different agendas. And the same thing with, I don't, whoever's pulling Biden's strings is moving his agenda forward. But the point is, we all know Biden's an airhead, can't think, he needs to go to a nursing home. So it's this elderly abuse. But character of the individual, when we talk about those things, that's no excuse. If somebody in the private sector has hired you, do you have, I don't know if you can say this, but I'm going to ask and tell me if you can't answer. How much revenue were you're a responsible division? There's a financial number on that thing of authority that you're over. If somebody hired you in that position, you're responsible to train XYZ employees that handle XYZ amount of business. Did you ever know a dollar amount of how much was under your authority as far as what you answered to your bosses for?
Yeah, when I was a franchise business consultant, and my numbers of locations, they would do realignments frequently.
Right.
I think the highest that I ever had was $372 million that rolled up underneath me as a franchise business consultant in 13 states.
370 some million. So I think the county budget is like 22 million a year. Is that right?
I'm not sure.
I think I had that number. Don't quote me on that, but I think that number was a number. As I've started to look into stuff, there's a lot of numbers what I've seen, but I think the county budget is somewhere around like 20 something million a year. So you're talking 10, 15 times that amount.
Yeah, absolutely.
370. So if your bosses trusted you with a $370 something million, for sure you could run Dearborn County Clerk's office.
I was pretty confident that I could.
Okay. All right. So you filed.
I did file.
You were telling me the other day on the phone. We didn't get too much into these details, but so when did you start hitting opposition then? When did you file, or before you filed, or what? What's that whole story?
Well, as I was starting to file, one of the requirements was that I had to have voted in Dearborn County's primary election, which I did not.
Which at the time, it was just one primary election?
Yeah, I think it was one primary election.
I remember, so I went to like 4 or 5 GOP meetings from 2021 to 2023. I went to maybe it's more than that. Maybe it was like 6. I don't remember. They were kind of fun. I got to what I could get to. I remember one of those meetings. I remember Mark Dole, who's currently the GOP chair, who Jim Thatcher was the chair before that.
Correct.
And Mark Dole had talked about, I think it was at one of those meetings, if I remember correctly, he had talked about just things going on in the state, that the party had talked about adding it to 2 terms, 2 primaries, to keep Democrats from flipping over and running as Republicans. And I think that passed since, this would have been 2021 or later than that. So now it's currently, you have to have 2, or you have to have the GOP chair of your county have a letter signing that this person pledges full support to the party and the values, and we vetted them and they're a real Republican, etc.
Right.
And you're supposed to attach that to the form, etc. Or if not, then it says in the county rule or in the GOP rules that, or at the county election board meeting. So you can tag it 2 different ways. But so back when you ran though, it was only 1, is what you were told?
Correct.
1 primary.
Yes.
And you had moved back in May of 2018?
Yes.
So you would have moved, you weren't back, you would have to be back here and registered with an address by April something to be a registered voter to vote in the 18 primary.
Correct.
Did you vote in the general in 18?
I did vote in the general.
But that doesn't matter.
That's correct. It did not matter. I was not able, which meant I needed to have a conversation with Jim Thatcher and have Jim Thatcher sign off on the form stating that he was going to allow me to run.
Right.
So I contacted.
Did you know who Jim Thatcher was before that conversation? Or before you knew
I
that?
knew who Jim was, yes.
Okay.
I didn't know him personally, but pretty much everybody in Dearborn County knows Jim Thatcher.
I think I might be the one exception.
Yeah.
He was a landscape customer of mine for 2 or 3 years, and he was a nice customer. We always got along. I try to get along with everybody. He and I don't see eye to eye politically now, but he said this stuff with the county keeps me so dang busy, and I said, oh really? What do you do with the county? No idea. I'm a commissioner. This is like 2021, maybe 2020, I think 2021, sometime 2018, 2019. No, it would have been 2020 or 21. I think it was. It was 2 or 3 years I did his landscaping, and we always got along fine. He was a good customer, etc. But he said, oh, I'm a commissioner. So, oh, really? What's a commissioner do? I didn't even know. So like everybody else, I go running for office and I'm like, who's Jim Thatcher? Apparently, I'm like, and then I talk to other people who don't even know who he is either. So that's why I asked. So you knew who he was as far as the party, or you knew who he was in Bonneville County government?
I knew who he was in county government.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So I placed a phone call to Jim that day.
Do you know if he knew who you were previously to that, or knew your family?
He may have known my family,
But you guys didn't
but no, I
those,
didn't.
those network of circles of friends?
No.
So you weren't already within the friend group of somebody else's friend group to
Correct.
be on the inn or have a
Correct.
friendship with the inn?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So I placed a phone call to Jim and I explained to him who I was. I explained to him that I had recently moved back from Arizona, so therefore I had not voted
Right.
in the most recent primary, and that I asked him if he would sign off for me to be able to run for clerk of the court.
Who told you that you first needed to fill out that paperwork?
It's right on the paperwork.
Okay.
That if
So did you go down to the office to try and file, and then call Jim?
No, I went and picked up the paper at the courthouse.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
I went and picked up the paper as I was filling it out. Then I realized, so at that point, I called Jim.
Okay, gotcha.
I think at the time Jim told me, and I can't remember because this has been a while ago.
Okay.
I think Jim told me to go ahead and send the form over, and then I didn't hear anything, and then I placed a phone call back. At that point, Jim told me that he would not sign off for me to be able to run, and I asked very specifically why, and he told me that because I did not vote in the most recent primary, and they have no knowledge of me, and I did not attend any of the Republican Party meetings or breakfasts that they were having at Eric's Bayview, that I would.
By the way,
Mhm.
at the Dearborn County Election Board meeting, I thought that was the party. The Eric, 'cause that was the first meeting I started going to, was the Eric Bayviews,
Uh-huh.
and now it's called something else. But now it's just called the View or the Bay.
Yeah, they closed down, so it's irrelevant at this
Did
point.
they reopen?
They
Didn't they?
They reopened, but they've closed down again.
Oh, okay. I drive by the place. I didn't even know. So that was the first ones I went to, and I thought that was the party. But at the most recent election board meeting, somebody made donations to that club's newsletter, and they attended those letters, and they threw them off the ballot. And when I asked, I said, they're donating. They haven't made any donations to the county central committee. And I said, here's the donation. It says they're a sponsor of the newsletter. And Mark Dole literally says that, and it's on video. You can go find it. It's on YouTube. We had cell phone videos going because I didn't figure that they'd actually video record, which they did. And I asked for minutes. They don't have any. I don't know how you do that, but whatever. So we had cell phones going because I figured that was going to be what happened. He goes, that's not a part of the party. That's our Lidl's Club. And I go, okay, figure. So it wouldn't have mattered even if you went to that anyway. Come to find out.
Well, at any rate, so that's what he said to me. So at that point, I said I can prove my voting record in the state of Arizona,
Okay.
which I did contact the state of Arizona, and I got my voting records. And also, I had my father-in-law, who's very, very involved in the Republican Party in Arizona, reach out to Jim to have a conversation with him and validate, my participation in the Republican Party in the state of Arizona,
Okay.
which my ex-father-in-law did contact Jim and have a conversation with him, and he reiterated to my father-in-law that he did not feel comfortable signing off for me because he could not prove that I was a true Republican.
Did he ever have a conversation with you about values?
He did not.
Okay. So he never asked, like, are you pro-life, pro-gun, pro-fiscal responsibility, pro-limited government, Okay.
That was what I just explained to you.
I thought that's what made you a Republican,
Yeah.
was your values. Here I am, a working Republican. One of the reasons why I got involved in government is Plato has a quote, and I've said this to several different people. I don't think I've told you this, but there's the phrase that says the only way for evil to good. It's the Edmund Burke, I think, is his name. The only way for evil to triumph is good men to do nothing, and it's a much longer quote. And a lot of people quote that saying, hey, people need to be involved. There's a quote, I think it was Plato, who said, those who refuse to be involved in their own system of government will be ruled by the inferior among them. I find that a lot more motivating to me because I don't want to be ruled by anybody. That's why I was self-employed. I don't want anybody for a boss, and I sure as heck don't want some tyrannical government as a boss, and I sure don't want some woke person my age who doesn't know which bathroom to use being my governor one day, or my legislator, and I'm not saying my governor or my legislator is doing that now, but I'm just saying down the road, like eventually one generation phases out and somebody's going to occupy government, and if good people aren't involved in government, then you're going to be ruled by the inferior among you. So you either choose ruleship or go do the work you don't want to do. And so that's what I thought a Republican was. I was a Republican because of my values. And I voted, I don't think I've ever missed a primary since I was 18. I voted in every primary in every congressional primary for every 2 years. I think when I lived in Aurora, I don't know if I was in Aurora when they had municipal elections, because we lived in Aurora for a period of time. So I may not have voted in that primary or in a municipal. And I don't know if we lived in Rising Sun for a little bit. But every single primary since I've turned 18, I think my voting record proves as far back as I can see, I voted in every primary. And I've always voted Republican. I've never voted Democrat. Old school Democrats are much different than the modern day Democrats. I hear that from people. Have you ever been a Democrat? Did you ever vote Democrat? Anybody in your family Democrat?
I've never. My ex-husband was a Democrat.
Okay.
But I have always voted Republican.
Okay. And your dad was a Republican growing up?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So literally zero affiliation ever with the Democratic Party.
Correct.
In Arizona and in Indiana.
Correct.
But he never asked you any questions about your values.
He did not.
So how would he have known if you were a Republican or a Democrat?
Well, I think what was...
Other than but if you're going to have does that make sense?
Yes,
like if you're going to call and
absolutely.
you're going to hire somebody, you don't go, do you work at this company? How long you work there? You're going to ask them character traits, beliefs, etc., because you're looking for a fit to uphold the Republican values. In my opinion, that's what makes, when I'm trying to vet somebody and go, hey, are they a Republican? I ask them what they think about the president. I ask them what they think about controversial issues. You can pretty much figure out whether somebody's Democrat, Republican, Libertarian. Sometimes you can figure that out. But he never asked you
He did
at
not.
all?
He did not.
Okay. Huh. Okay, so he wouldn't sign off on your form.
He would not sign off on my form. So I reached out to a political attorney in Indianapolis,
Okay.
and that person explained to me that I did not need to have Jim's signature on that form to be able to file.
Right.
So I went to the courthouse and I filed my paperwork, and when I got there, and I went to file, of course I was obviously asked if I had the form from
Jim.
the commissioner, which I did not
No,
have.
it would have been the GOP chair. He was
Yes.
also commissioner, but the
Correct,
fact that he's
the
commissioner
GOP
doesn't mean
chair,
anything.
correct. So I said I did not, and I was informed that they could not take my paperwork. At that point, I stepped out into the hallway, placed a phone call to the attorney that I had been speaking to in Indianapolis. I put the phone on speakerphone, walked back in.
Amazing. Everybody gets a little squirmy as soon as you get a lawyer involved.
Yeah. So walked back in, had the phone on speakerphone.
Do you remember who was at the clerk's office at that point?
Who was the one who was taking care of me?
Yeah.
That was Wendy Beatty.
Okay.
And Wendy was very nice. And I told...
She's currently the clerk, but she wasn't before. That was the old clerk, but
Gail was the clerk.
Gail Pennington
Gail
was the old-
Pennington was the
okay.
clerk at the time. So I
I
explained...
think I saw her at one of those meetings, but I don't think I've ever met or interacted with her, but I think I saw her at one of those
Gail?
little breakfast meetings.
Yeah.
And I never went to the clerk's office before that I can remember.
Yeah, so I basically explained to Wendy that I had an attorney on the phone from Indianapolis,
Okay.
and that he notified me that they could not prevent me from filing, and that they needed to accept my forms, and that they needed to be stamped.
Right.
And Wendy said, I'm sorry, Mishelle, I can't take this. And I said, then you need to get Gail out here and have Gail come and talk to me, but I'm not leaving here today
Right.
until I file. Gail came out.
In fairness to Wendy, do you feel like her hands were tied, or
Yes, absolutely. I feel like Wendy was doing her job.
right.
Wendy
she was working under the clerk at that point?
Correct. She was doing what she was told to do.
Right.
Gail came out. I had the phone on speaker. I was also interacting with...
Did you know Gail before that?
I did not know Gail before that. But I was, having dialogue with the attorney on the phone at the same exact time. The phone was on speakerphone. Gail came out of her office,
The back
And-
left corner? Okay.
She came out and they stamped and filed my paperwork.
Okay.
And I thanked them and I walked out of the courthouse. And I felt.
When was that? Did you file early on, late? Do you remember?
No, it was pretty late when I filed.
So February time frame?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I tried to
I
find.
think I don't know if they came up with the same dates every time, but this year it was January the 10th through February the 9th, I want to say, at noon, which was a Friday. I don't know if they changed that year to year based on calendars. I'm
Yeah.
not sure exactly what that is.
Well,
So
here's.
you're thinking of sometime in like the last week, maybe?
Oh, it was definitely within the last
Okay,
week. As
gotcha.
a matter of fact, it was either Thursday or Friday of the
okay.
deadline. But what I'll tell you ended up happening after.
Is there a reason why you waited so long to file, or just considering the idea still, not 100% sure?
No, I was advised by the attorney who was counseling me at the time, not to file until as close to the end as possible.
When you originally went to pick up the paperwork and found out you had to talk to, or they were told you had to talk to Jim, was that towards the beginning of that time?
Yes,
Okay.
yes,
Okay. So you had legal advice. So you went normal file. Hey, the first time it's opening within that first beginning time frame
correct,
is earlier on. Not exactly sure. Remember the dates? It was 4 years ago.
right,
I don't remember what I had for lunch last week.
right,
But then so you had legal advice saying, hey, wait till the end.
Mhm.
Okay. So then you filed. So then what happened next?
So I believe that was either on a Thursday or a Friday. I believe actually, as a matter of fact, I believe it was on a Thursday, and I'll tell you why. So I filed on Thursday. It was either Thursday or a Friday, at the end of the week, at
Okay.
the end of the filing time. So I'm thinking everything's fine. Everything's.
You got your attorney.
Yeah,
All of a sudden they changed their tune.
everything's good. So I start getting phone calls. So Friday, Monday's a holiday, right?
Right.
I start getting phone calls.
Monday was a holiday back then.
Yes, so I filed on a Friday.
So it would have been so even if it was different dates, it might not have been February 9th, it would have been a different date, but it would have been the Friday before President's Day?
Yes.
Okay. That would have been continuing. So it's probably some different date 4 years ago than the 9th of February, but it would have been the Friday before President's Day. So then you got a 3-day weekend.
Correct. A 3-day weekend. So Wednesday in the afternoon, I start getting phone calls saying, they had a hearing today and you were challenged and you did not show up at the hearing. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Right? I have no idea what you're
Were
talking
these phone calls from people who asked you to run, or people that you knew in the courthouse, or people you don't want to say?
Both, a combination of both. And I'm like, how do people know that there's a hearing where I'm named and I don't even know?
Well, it wasn't a legal hearing, so.
So the very next day, the very next day, I get somebody knocks at the door. I open up the door, and there is the mailman with a certified letter. I open it up.
So this is Thursday?
This
you get
is-
Thursday?
So it's hard.
Wednesday?
It's hard for me to remember. So the hearing may have been on Tuesday, and I found out about it on Wednesday and was served on Thursday, or it could have been.
This last year, they had a hearing on Tuesday afternoon.
Okay, well, it may have been, like I said, it's been a very long time
Okay.
ago. It's very hard for me to remember.
4 years is a long time, yeah.
Correct, but what I do know is there was a hearing, and I had no knowledge of the hearing.
Right.
I was never served until after the hearing had already.
And how many days after
Been
you
held.
said?
It was 1 or 2 days after.
It was
is
after,
when I
regardless.
was served, but it absolutely was after, and I was challenged, and I was removed from the ballot.
And you had no idea.
And I had no knowledge of it. No knowledge
Do you know, were
whatsoever.
you the only person who was challenged at that point?
I do not know if I was the only person that was challenged. I would probably venture to say that I was. But what was interesting is...
Do you know who was on the election board? There's a Democrat, a Republican, and then it's the clerk of courts. Makes up the county election board is what I was told. That's what happened this last time. They had a Republican. I don't know how they picked that or who picks it. I don't know if the party picks it or what. And then the Democratic Party picks their person, but they had a Democrat person sitting on the board, a Republican. And by the way, the board, if they have the paperwork in order and there's a challenge and nobody wants to do anything different, the board has to honor whatever like they legally do under any. They had a right. They had a right to challenge. They didn't have to challenge, and they could have had you included. But the board's hands are kind of tied. They're just saying what's legal and what's not, and it's supposed to be a balance. So this last time, every single one of them all voted Democrat, clerk, and Republican, which the clerk so the clerk before when you were there would have been Gail Pennington. She was the clerk.
Correct.
Do you know who was the? So Jim Thatcher was the GOP chair at the time.
That is correct.
Do you know who? Did your letter tell you who? Your letter would have said he filed the challenge because he was the GOP chair. I think the GOP chair has to file the challenge.
I believe it was Jim Thatcher who filed
the challenge.
the challenge.
Do you know what the election board was made up of? Did your paperwork?
Gail Pennington,
Okay.
which I also am questioning that. How can Gail be on a board when I would be her opponent?
That is a conflict
So
of interest.
it definitely is a conflict of interest, and in my
So
opinion, she should have been recused.
Yeah, I agree with that. She may have been on there. Is it state law that decides?
I have no idea. I do know that
Well, so this last time, I think it was a Jared Eubank who was, I think it was subbed in last minute. I thought it was supposed to be a Kramer. I'd have to go back and look at the paperwork. For some reason, there was somebody different who was sitting in for the Republicans. And he was fair, honest, dealt with everybody fine. But did you ever watch the any of the videos that we had of this last election?
No, I didn't know about it until someone reached out to me and said.
I'll send you the video. So there's a gentleman who ran for precinct committeeman, which is just a party position. It's not clerk. It's not anything else. It's just a party position. He ran for Greendale 1. He's also a tree customer of mine. Really great guy. He looks like Abraham Lincoln. He's got a white beard, but he dyes it dark, and he does Abraham Lincoln impersonations. He's been voting Republican since 1964 when he first voted for Barry Goldwater. And he, quote, is not a Republican in good standing. And he had just moved back from the air, military veteran, and he's sitting on the front of it. He's got his video. I videoed it. And I put a timeout. I'll send you the link to it on YouTube. But I didn't know this at the time. I would have brought it up at the meeting because it's the same thing as what you were dealing with you running and Gail being on that board and thinking that she should have recused herself. Mm-hmm. Because come to find out, Jared Eubank, I think that's the name. If it's not, I apologize to whoever Jared Eubank is. These are all new faces to me. My parents weren't originally from Dearborn County, so my daddy didn't go to school with somebody else's daddy. I know people through baseball and through work. Mm-hmm. So that's my networks and business connections and church. So I think Jared Eubank was running against, there were 3 people on the ballot for precinct committeeman. It was Jared Eubank running against Abraham Lincoln, Jim Fulton. And Jim's got some letters. I believe the Register maybe carried them. They're on Facebook. Are you on Facebook?
I am.
Okay, if you go to Uncle Sam for Indiana and you scroll back far enough, to like the February 12th time frame and the weeks following there, I posted some of his letters. But you'd be appalled. But so anyway, he's sitting up there testifying, and the guy who's the Republican is running for precinct committeeman against the position that Mark Dole challenged Jim for. So there's another conflict. I don't know how that floated through, because he didn't. I understand the clerk. I still think that I didn't even think about that. I still think Gail should have recused herself. That is a conflict of interest. But again, 4 years later, it's the same thing. Somebody who's on the board, the county election board, is running against, or would be running against, the person trying to get on the ballot. Didn't know that.
Interesting, isn't it?
Huh. This is why I like doing a conversation this way, because there's just things that come up that you go, didn't think about that. All right, so anyway, keep going. So conflict of interest.
Yeah.
But do you know who? So Gail was on there. We were talking about that. Do you remember who if did your letter say who the Republican and the
Yeah,
Democrat were?
and
or
I'm
do you
sure
know?
I have that information somewhere at home. And as a matter of fact, I actually posted it on Facebook because I
I'll
absolutely
go
could
back
not
and-
believe.
If you find it, send it to me, please.
Yeah.
I'll share it.
Absolutely. But I could not believe that they moved forward with a hearing before I was ever notified through certified mail. Now the workaround. I'm going to tell you the workaround. The workaround is they posted it at the courthouse the day prior to the meeting, which is public knowledge, public notice.
Which was Friday.
No, it was not on Friday.
If
It
the hearing was on
posted
Tuesday, they could have posted it Friday afternoon.
Oh.
He would have had the child, because the deadline, or at least this last election, the deadline to file your candidacy would have been noon on Friday. If it was the same as 4 years ago, the dates would have been a little bit different because
Right.
of, things changed 4 years. But the deadline was noon on Friday, and then the date they had 1 week to file a challenge, noon, which meant by Friday afternoon, that would have been a full business day, and then Monday's a closed holiday.
Correct.
So Tuesday is still, Monday's the business day before Tuesday. So if they sent out the certified mail Monday, it was 4 days before, because it was Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and then Tuesday. You got 4 days in between there. That's what happened when I ran for Senate. They waited until Friday, sent out the certified letters, and I don't know when. I know the other guy that I ran against for Senate, he had filed at like 12 or 12:30, and I filed at like 4:30 or something, 4:30. I forget what it was, but I remember seeing somebody else was in there around noon, so I knew they didn't do it first thing in the morning. So if they filed officially that the old senator was stepping down, and then the certified letters went out at noon, then you had to wait, because I had to wait to file till after the certified letters went out.
Mm-hmm.
So if they go out at noon, then they had 10 days. They got to count Friday all the way till Tuesday the next week. But you're burning up. I wouldn't have gotten access to those precinct committeeman lists, who the voters were in that caucus, until the following Tuesday, unless I got in there on Friday. So, because you got a 3-day weekend. So you take a 10-day race and shorten it down to 7 days.
Mm-hmm.
So if they're doing the same thing in the county, where they take, legally you got to have so much amount of time, but they plan it on a holiday weekend, it gives them the most amount of time to plan stuff. And then if you have to change work, you find out about it on Monday or Tuesday. Well, certainly by law, that's the other workaround that they can kind of call it, if you want to call it manipulate things, or
I call it the playbook.
okay.
I call it the playbook. So they absolutely have a playbook that they use that has their own tactics that they use to prevent people from running, and how they can challenge them, etc., that you or I would not know if we absolutely have not gone through it.
Yes, you don't know until you go through it. And then most of the people who go through it, they go, "Oh, I'm never doing that again."
Mm-hmm.
I'm like,
Yeah.
why? Now you figured out what's going on. Let's play ball the next game. Like,
Yeah.
you're not pulling that trick play on me
Right.
again.
So the workaround was they posted it in the courthouse, like you said. It could have been on Friday. My assumption was they posted it Tuesday morning, and then had the hearing later on in the day. But it absolutely met their requirements because they had it posted
Right.
as the
So-
public notice.
A week later, a month later, a year later, whatever, everything was legal and by the book. I just saw it posted on Facebook today. It just because it appears a certain way, and there's not some conspiracy. It's all really good people who are involved in doing a job nobody wants to do anyway, and we should appreciate them. Which I agree with that line of thinking to an extent, but not when there's this blatant stuff going on.
Well, you should also appreciate the people that are running. You know,
Who don't-
I was asked to run, and I was asked to run for a reason, right? So it's not we the people for the people. Because
It's we the click for the click,
I
or the group, or the buddy system, or the golf team, or the beer drinking team, or whatever it is.
right, because if it was we the people for the people, one, I would have never been challenged to begin with,
Right.
and two, Mr. Thatcher would have signed off and allowed me the opportunity to run for office,
Yeah.
and allowed the constituents to make the decision of who they wanted in the courthouse, not who they wanted in the courthouse.
Right. So it's either the people deciding or a small group of people deciding.
Exactly. And the interesting thing to all of that is there had already been rumors before I ever ran that Gail was not going to serve her full 4-year term, which meant Gail was going to be leaving.
Where'd you hear those rumors from? The
It was-
grapevine, the
it was-
people talking
it
to you
was
want you to
common
run?
knowledge. Gail herself had made mention to people that she most likely was not going to serve a full term.
Okay.
Which means when Gail
I wasn't
retires,
paying attention to county government at that point, so
right,
I had no idea of that.
And a lot of people aren't. And that's why I'm here today sitting with
Right.
you having this
That's
conversation.
why I asked you to come.
And
When I heard about this, that this has happened to somebody else, I go, give them my. I think was it Mike Lawrence I talked to? I forget who it was. I've talked to so many different people. I've said, give my number out, have people call me. I want to hear this story because you hear a lot of things, and then people hear things, and then they get repeated. It's like the telephone game, and all of a sudden, by the time you're hearing it, it's not what actually happened. I'm like, I want to hear it straight from the horse's mouth.
Yeah.
Not to call you a horse. I'm just saying, I wanted it straight from the source, and I was like, this happened 4 years ago. What the heck?
Yeah.
What is going on? So it was rumored. You had heard those rumors. Gail wasn't going to serve the 4 years. So you think they knew this back in 2018, 2019?
I absolutely think that they knew that in 2018 and 2019. And I'm going to tell you why I believe that. Because they caucus in way too many people. If I know that I'm going to be retiring and I'm not going to be able to run a full term of whatever it is that I'm running for, I am not going to run because I will not be able to fulfill the
Right.
requirements of the job for the full term.
Right.
So in my mind, I'm not going to do that.
So the opposite side of that, and I hear that argument, but the opposite side of that is, when you took your job at Denny's,
Mhm.
you weren't how many years did you work there?
6.
Okay, so you weren't a slave for them for 6 years. You could have left at any point.
Absolutely.
And I get this for like the president. I don't want the president going 3 years and like stepping down. But if somebody's running for office and there's something crazy that comes up, a health challenge, something else, or their family moves or etc., there's nothing wrong with stepping down. The caucus exists for if it's a Democrat controlled, the Democrat coaching staff, the party should decide who they want to fill out that term, and then the people can decide we want Democrat, Republican, right? And then the primaries happen, etc. But I don't have a problem with people stepping down and using the caucus because the caucus is supposed to be people get to pick a representative, their precinct committeeman, and that goes on the presidential ballot every 4 years on the presidential primary. So this coming up spring, do you know what precinct you live in?
Greendale 2.
Okay, so there's a lady running. Her name's Natalia Beam, who's running for Greendale 2, and you get a choice on who. There's another person running as well, but I think there were originally 3 people running. You have to look that up. It's on a public ballot. You can get a public ballot for your. You can get a ballot, see who's on there. But anyway, you get a chance to vote in who you want to represent you as a Republican in the primary to represent your voice in the party, or you have a chance to run yourself every 4 years on the presidential primary. What was happening in Dearborn County, and this is the inside information I stumbled across, because the caucus I was in, those voters, it was 114 precinct committeemen in the Senate district, but Dearborn County has 45. So when they caucus in Gale, there's a total of 45 votes. All you need is 23 people max, but you only need 50% plus one of the people who show up. So if you have 11 people show up, you need 6 people to get the clerk's job.
Right.
Or the commissioner's job, or whoever's it is. What I found out was most of the people weren't even running for a precinct committeeman. So if nobody runs for Greendale 2, which nobody did last time, there was somebody else appointed then who lived up in Bright or something, which I've heard Hidden Valley and Bright, Lawrenceburg and Bright, Hidden Valley and Bright control the whole county. I'm like, it's just noise. Somebody got a beef with somebody. That's what I originally heard. Now I'm looking, I'm going, you look at all these precinct committee, I'm like, yeah, Hidden Valley and Bright. Like there's this little club of people up there that think they run the whole county. And they do, because nobody else knows how to compete. So
Well, the problem is they're not allowed to compete.
right, they're kicked off the ballot.
They don't even get the chance or the opportunity to compete. Absolutely.
And nobody puts all the pieces together.
They are challenged and they are not allowed to run.
Right. And that's why they went after the precinct committeeman this last time, which we can talk about that later. But so that's what happened. So the people who were appointed, now I don't know, it's inside information. I don't have the books for Dearborn County. I'm not in the party in Dearborn County. So I did a video called Time with Uncle Sam. I don't know if you saw it or not. I can send you a link to it. So I went over that information. So I knew that 23 of those precinct committeemen had to have been appointed because they didn't live in the precincts.
Mm-hmm.
So the precincts, but I've since found out after that many, many more people have. You want to know what else I heard? This is came to light after that election board meeting, the public election board meeting that I was at. So 4 years earlier, this is 4 years later, that one of the precinct committeemen, I think it was Cedar Creek, there's a guy named David Kitchell who's running for precinct committeeman out there. They had called somebody else in the clerk's office like the last day. You can go in, it's time stamped. It's the date stamped of when they signed up. And this person was signed up, and they told her, just sign up, and when you get elected, you can resign, and then we'll appoint someone. So the person who's running against David Kitchell I don't even know who this person is. I've been heard a name. I'd have to go check my paperwork to get everything, but I don't know who this person is. Like, I don't know them personally or whatever. This was a new name to me. They're not even planning, if they get elected, they're not even planning on being in the position.
Yeah.
You're either voting for David Kitchell and Cedar Creek, or you're voting for the good old party, whoever they are, to have their control, because they'll appoint someone and then use that caucus to sub in all these other players outside of normal elections, and then they're coming in as incumbents. So I'm not totally opposed to the caucus. I'm just opposed to the caucus when one person decides the majority, which is the facts that I got from the Indiana State Party because I got on the ballot. I had to file financial disclosures up at the Capitol building, everything, just to get access to that information.
Yeah.
So one person really decided who was going to be the clerk. And that person would have been usually the GOP chair. So either it would have been Jim Thatcher or Mark Dole, or them working together. Which, by the way, I was at one of the GOP meetings. I don't know if it's God's providence. I don't know where you're at, faith, everything. I'm a Christian. I don't know if it's God's hand of providence or what the deal is. But I only made it to like 5 or 6 of these GOP meetings. These little breakfast Art Littles Club thing that I went to, that I would thought was the party, but apparently it's not. Technically. So I guess it doesn't get you anything. There's no point to go to that either, unless you want to be a part of the social club. Who wants to be a part of the social club? We got lives to live. I do. I've got a family. I had other things. So I found out that I was at the meeting when Jim Thatcher said, I'm not going to be running again for GOP chair. Mark Dole has I don't know exactly what he was over on Bayview. He was against the glass in the very end, and I was over on the other end. Best of my recollection, this was kind of the tone of, Mark's graciously offered to step up and serve in this capacity. It's a thankless job. You know, I'm glad somebody's willing to do it. It's I put a lot of work into it, and it's not a paid position. And like, I know it's not a paid position, but my goodness, you sure hold a lot of cards. You know, if you're the GOP chair and you're doing this stuff and you appoint all the PCs.
Yeah, absolutely.
You don't hold a lot of the cards if all the PCs control their own seats and they're all elected. But if it's a normal open seat, that GOP chair, they literally, and he goes, he's running, the election is, and it's the first Saturday in March, wherever it was, it's decided by the chair. And he made it, he said the phrase, he goes, and he's the only one on the ballot, so he's going to get elected. And I'm thinking, I remember saying to myself, I'm sitting there eating my omelet or whatever I was eating and going, what the heck's the point of an election when there's only one person running? And it was just like a thought that went through my brain. So Jim Thatcher handed the GOP to Mark Dole. So I don't know if both of them were planning for the new clerk to be the person, but, and so this is the question, I don't know if you interacted at all with this or would know. When I was running for Senate, I got the list and I called Mark Dole because he was one of the people listed. And I had called him and asked him how to get the information. He wasn't really helpful in helping me. You'd have to call, the number's online, and he could have given me all the information saying, here's how you file, do it. He wasn't very helpful, which I kind of understand now why. But anyway, I filed. He's one of the PCs. He's one of the voters. Called him, asked him, hey, would you be willing to sit down with me, hear about my values, why I'm running? Because that's what you want to know when you have an election like this. Out of the blue, Chip Perfect steps down, supposedly. I'm not sure if it's out of the blue or planned. I have no idea. I don't want to speculate. I just want to talk about the facts. But the facts, this is the phone call. So I'm on my way back, driving on 74, coming back, and I'm on the phone with Mark, and he said, no, Sam, when I asked him, would you be willing to meet with me? He said, no, Sam, I don't think I would. See, what happened was, we all got together that night. Of course, our clerk, we had a caucus. Our clerk had to step down, and we had to caucus a new clerk. And that was the first I'd heard of the whole clerk thing. And so, and that was Tuesday, and then Wednesday, Chip announced he was stepping down, but he didn't file, or they didn't send out the certified letters until Friday. So I couldn't even get the list of precinct committeemen until Friday afternoon. And he said, we all got together, and I don't know who we all is, but it would have been the people who showed up to the caucus. We all got together and pretty much decided that Randy, he's going to be the one that gets it, and that's how it's going to be. So did you hear any kind of lingo about that? Were you privy to any of those phone calls? Did you hear through the grapevine? Was it if Gail wasn't going to be the clerk the whole time? Did you know who their pick was? Did they have a pick?
No.
Because I was told Gail. Somebody told me Gail stepped. It was out of nowhere that Gail stepped down.
Well, I can tell you, I heard from multiple people that Gail was not going to fulfill her entire term.
Okay.
Before
I would guess your sources
before
were better
the
than mine.
election. Before the election.
Before the 2024
Before the
election,
2020
which is well
election.
before this spring.
And that there was a strategic plan that they were going to caucus someone in. Who that person was,
You never
I
knew.
was not privy to that information.
Well, if they had a plan to caucus somebody in, they had somebody in line.
Oh, I'm sure they did.
You have somebody sitting on the bench ready to take who you're subbing out in the field.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I agree with you 100%.
And you weren't on that list of people that they wanted to
I
caucus
was
in?
not on that
You're not,
list.
shucky darn, man. It is a short list. There's like one person on that list. So, I mean, I don't know if it was Wendy Beatty or who the person was. Maybe it was somebody else. Who knows? Maybe we'll never know. Okay, so that brings you all the way to you're removed off the ballot. What have you done since then? Did you ever try to run for anything else?
I did not try to run for anything else. It kind of puts a bad taste in your mouth.
Oh,
I mean, honestly, it does.
I know.
You know, they want people to run, right? They want people to become involved in their community.
Or at least they want to give the appearance of wanting people involved or running.
Yeah. Listen, I'm not judging anybody. I'm just simply here to state the facts. Like,
Yeah.
what happened to me, I don't know what anyone's intentions are.
Right.
All I know is...
But there happens to be this recurring habit.
Absolutely. And I thought at the time that it was just me. And I was like...
An isolated incident?
An isolated incident. And I'm like, why would they go to such extreme, in my mind, right? Because that's extreme to me. Because he had the option to sign the paper and allow me to run. So why wouldn't
Which
you?
doesn't mean that you were going to get it.
Absolutely.
It just means that you were going to be able to compete to get it.
Correct.
Do you know, was Gail Pennington then the only one on the ballot? Or was there anybody else who ran against her?
Gail was the only one on the ballot.
Oh, okay. No, that's a...
Yeah. So, but for me, this is an isolated incident, and I'm trying to determine why are they preventing me from running for this? Like,
Did you ever think it was personal? Like
I
maybe
absolutely-
somebody in your family had irritated somebody in the last name they didn't like?
I didn't think that it was that.
I had that when I ran for Senate. Somebody had a ticked off attitude about me. You're not related to that Mortensen family dental, are you? And I said, no, it's the same last name. And there's a funny story behind that. But no, I wasn't. Well, apparently this was a disgruntled customer from Mortensen Family Dental. And I've actually gone to Mortensen Family Dental, been very happy with them. But this person wasn't. And so then they automatically, I'm like, well, no wonder they act like I got something stuck up their rear end when I walked into the room. They must not like my name, thinking that I'm the dentist's son or something. Had nothing to do with me. So you thought it was an isolated incident from what?
I just thought.
I mean, you just moved back to the area, so you didn't have any
know.
interaction with him?
No, I didn't, and I didn't know why, but I absolutely did not think that it was, something that someone had a grudge against someone in my family or anything like that. I just felt like, okay, maybe because I just moved back from Arizona, that they don't want me specifically to
Arizona person.
to write. So this person just moved back here after being gone for how many years? How dare them,
Yeah, but your family's all
want to
embedded in
run
the
for clerk
community,
of the
local
court.
business owner, you've
Right.
been connected, you got friends here, you're not just like some transplant.
Exactly. But, in my mind, I'm trying to make sense of it.
Rationalize
like,
it.
Why would someone go to such extremes to prevent me from even being able to be on the ballot? Like, why would we not allow our constituents to vote and vote for the person that they feel would be the most qualified
Right.
for that position? And, just like you said, there's no guarantee that I would have won that election. But I wasn't even given the opportunity.
You're the Super Bowl champion. What was the game? You were the only team that showed up. Here's your ring, here's your trophy. You won the game. You won the election. You're the only one on the ballot, but you won.
Well, the reason I'm doing this today, Sam, is because I took it very personal when I was not allowed to run. I took it very, very personal. And then what happened this February started to shed some light on what's going on.
So now you feel left out. It's not personal anymore.
It
It's
is-
against everybody.
It is not personal. They don't discriminate.
Everybody's discriminated against, not just one person.
Right.
So when was the first time you heard about this? February then?
I heard about it in February, and at the time, I didn't. So I'm just going to tell you. So I've been pretty sick lately, and I'm in and out of the emergency room. I've had a lot of health problems. Most recently, we finally figured out what it was. We have it under control. I'm feeling better now.
Good for
so
you.
at the time when I heard about it, on a scale of 1 to 10,
It was a 0.5?
it was pretty low, right? So I'm like, okay, yeah, I'll deal with that a little later on down the road. Because I just needed to get myself back into a healthy place.
Right.
But once I started getting healthier, it just kept rubbing me and rubbing me and rubbing me.
Did you see any of the... There was some kind of talk for a while on Facebook. I don't know how much traction it got. I put the information out there. If people don't want to look at it, that's up to people. But at least it's out there. Did you look at any of the stuff on Facebook?
I did not hear about any of this stuff on Facebook. But then I started getting phone calls and I started getting messages.
Okay.
And it's like, hey, Mishelle, guess what? They're doing the same.
You're not the only one.
Right, you're not the only one. So they did this to multiple people this February. And I'm like, what? So then
13, by the way. There was
Right.
one for commissioner, a couple for delegates and precinct committeemen. And then one of the people who ran for precinct committeeman also ran for state representative, and they did it to him as well there. So how many positions? It may have been like 14, 15. Some of those people who ran, they were for both. It might have been up to 20 positions. Don't quote me. I'd have to go back and count the numbers. But there was 13 being challenged at the Dearborn County Republican. But then one of the guys running for precinct committeeman also ran for state representative, and they challenged him there as well.
yeah. My thing is
So yes, you're not the only one.
yeah. And what's so frustrating to me is, in my mind, okay, it's we the people for the people. Our people should have more of an opportunity to have a voice.
That's a First Amendment right. You have the right to redress the government for
Absolutely.
grievances, which is what we're doing here.
Correct.
But part of that is, I don't like you working for me. I want to put somebody else in there. I have a voice in choosing who I want working for me. That's how you redress the government for. It's a First Amendment right.
But we are not given the opportunity because of the workarounds and the
legal workarounds.
sideline playbook that most normal citizens do not know or understand how it is being operated, that is preventing people from being able to run for local offices.
I agree. And you know the scary thing is, I am so thankful I didn't get elected to the Senate. I didn't want to have to be the senator anyway. You can go back and watch videos I did. They're horrible videos, but they're the honest truth. They were actually recorded right in my basement, which is a mess right now. We're doing some remodeling, but I like 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm working, and you can go back and you go to freedomfather.org videos. A letter was on there I wrote. It took me like 2.5 hours to write that letter. I am not a fast writer, etc. And losing that, I would have gone my whole life. I talked to somebody who's 83, who's been involved in Dearborn County politics before. He's paid attention to things, a business owner here locally. And when I explained this information, he was floored that it finally made sense and it all clicked together. And he's like, Sam, you figured it out. I was like, I don't know if it's dumb luck or God's hand of providence I stumbled across it, but that's absolutely what's going on. I look back now and I go, I am so thankful that I did not get elected, because it was only till the day I was right over by that kitchen island over there. I was walking on the backside. I think I was holding my daughter, Stephanie. No, I wasn't. She wasn't born yet. Maybe I was holding one of the other girls, or we were just, I think my wife was making lunch, and I stopped, babe, that's all the puzzles, kind of like that complicated puzzle piece all fit together. He goes, that's the map. That's the playbook you're talking about.
Yeah, and all the pieces to the puzzle were put in place this February when I started seeing what was taking place, and it's like, oh, the light bulb just went off. So
you didn't know all, I mean, you knew what happened to you, but
I knew
you
what
didn't,
happened to me.
but you didn't figure out the playbook analogy until this time.
I did not figure it out until this time.
Sometimes you see the plays when you're up on the stands, not on the field. You can't really see everything.
Exactly. And like, to me, in my mind, it is unethical. Point blank, it's unethical. What is transpiring by blocking people from being able to run is unethical. Why would you go to such extremes to prevent people from being able to be on a ballot? Why?
I think one of the other perspectives is it's a double standard.
Well, it's absolutely a double standard, but it's manipulation.
Because, and here's what I pointed out at the election board meeting. I don't know how many people watched the video, but I pointed out, so Wendy Beatty, who's now the current clerk, when she was caucused in, I got a hold of her voting record. I got everybody's, I didn't get everybody's voting record. I got the Republican primary because I'm helping to get some other local people elected, and I'm promoting that on my Facebook page, Uncle Sam for Indiana. I'm looking at, I want we the people to have the power. I don't care about any one of those candidates specifically. If those candidates that I'm backing get in, now it's distributed power. We have better form of government if those individuals are in than the current ones. Now, some of the people on that list might be people some people don't like. They might be people you don't like. Point is, you get those people in, those people get in, we the people have more power. And we the people having control of our government is better than a select few having control of our government. And so when I pointed out the inconsistencies of what was going on, it's a double standard because at that election board meeting, February I think it was the 12th, whatever it was. No, it was after that. It would have been like the 6th. No, it was the 20th. It was my twins' birthday. That was another thing that rubbed me the wrong way. I had to give up my birthday with my twins. 9th was the 9th, then it would go on 7 days later was the 16th, and then the 3-day, 4-day weekend, it would have been the 20th, would have been that Tuesday. Is I pointed out, so our current sheriff, Shane McHenry, who I've heard a lot of good things about, I shook his hand for the first time yesterday. I don't know him. He was one of the precinct committeemen, so I talked to him on the phone. I saw him at a parade. I think I saw him for and I saw him at the caucus, but I didn't shake his hand because we had a couple rows of chairs between us. And I saw him at a commissioner meeting yesterday, and I shook his hand for the first time. But I look up his voting record because I'm going through, and he's signed up to be a precinct committeeman for one of the places here in Aurora. And his voting record shows he voted Democrat in the primary of 2016. I don't know if he's a Hillary Clinton fan or if he's, I don't know what, there were more people than just Hillary who ran back then, but that was the end of the Obama era. I didn't want any more Democrats after Obama for 8 years. But he voted then, and then he ran for commissioner he ran for sheriff as a Republican in 2018, and has been serving as their sheriff. And I don't know if he's a good sheriff, bad sheriff. I don't really know much about the sheriff's department. I've heard a lot of great things about him as a person, but you hear a lot of bad things. It's county government. I just never really paid much attention to it. He's been a nice guy when I've interacted with him. But the inconsistency, so I don't have a personal beef with him necessarily. I'm just saying there's a double standard, a clear double standard. And then I also pointed out, so he's somebody currently in county government. I'm going, why are you blocking these other people? Here's somebody who voted Democrat. This person, Mr. Abraham Lincoln, has been voting Republican his whole life since 64, whenever he voted for Barry Goldwater. And then this guy pulls a Democrat ticket in primary of 16, and you let him run for sheriff in 2018. Nobody blocked him then. And Jim Thatcher was the GOP chair then because he would have been from 17 to 21 because it served a 4-year term following the March after the presidential inauguration. And then Wendy Beatty, as it has it, she voted Democrat as far back as I could look. The first time she voted Republican was Republican in 2018, which was a throwaway year because all you were voting for was a person in Congress. And I don't even know, there was our congressperson is different, I think, in 2018 than what it is today. I think that changed over since 2020. But there might have been just one person on the ballot for Congress in 2020, or in 2018. 2020, or 2018 was it wasn't a presidential year. So in my mind, 2018 really isn't much of a decision-making year. But if they had been planning somebody ahead of time and their pick was Wendy and she needed to have a Republican ballot, she could have pulled a Republican ticket in 2018 or been told to pull a Republican ticket just so she had it on her record. Maybe that's speculation. The facts are she pulled an R in 2018. Then she voted Democrat in 2020. I don't know if she's a Biden fan or what the deal is. So 16 she votes Democrat, 20 she votes Democrat, and then in 22 she voted R again. But again, another throwaway year. All you're voting for is Congress, and you're not going to get a Democrat elected to the 9th district. So that's after the redistricting change. So we went from 6th district now to the 9th. So a little bit of that shifted, but they were still both. It used to be Greg Pence. Now it's somebody else. So anyway, they switched it. It was 6th. Now it went to 9th. I know that much. So And then, so when she got caucused in August, she didn't meet the 2 primary rule either.
Well, and that's
And by that time, it had changed the 2 primaries. But now, and when I brought that up at the meeting, somebody else questioned that, and Mark Dole's response was, no, Wendy's a Republican in good standing. Why? Because she voted Republican in the primary of 2023 in a Lawrenceburg municipal election, which doesn't matter a hill of beans when it comes to Democrats versus Republicans. That's completely irrelevant.
Yeah.
And so she now meets the 2 primary rules because 2022 and 2023. What the heck did those years mean for anything? She can pull a Republican ticket this primary because Joe Biden's the only one on the ticket for the Democrat, and Donald Trump is the only person on the ticket for the Republican. So those presidential races are already decided. She can pull a Republican ticket, vote for herself as clerk, get elected to the clerk if unless people start sharing the information and enough people getting out here. I can't imagine that Dearborn County would tolerate this if they know. But the question is, people got to know, which is why we need to have living room conversations like this. She can pull a Republican ticket, vote for herself this spring, and vote for Joe Biden in November. And she, quote, is a Republican in good standing.
Well, and the interesting thing
And that is a absolute factual double standard.
Exactly. And if she were to run at the same time that I was running, she would have not been able to run. Because she would have not met the criteria.
That would depend on when the rule was changed. If they changed it from 1 primary to 2 primaries, this is when I looked at that. This is when the pieces fell in. She did vote in the primary of 2018. But is she a Republican? If you voted Democrat your whole life and you just switched in 2018 because you're going to run for clerk or they're talking to you or you're supposed to be subbing in, and then, oh crap, we need to have you on too, so we'll caucus you in, and then you need to make sure you vote in that local election, and then have you again. If the rules changed, she would have, though. Because she did have a Republican primary the previous primary.
Sam, the rules do change.
I think that's when they changed them. I think they changed. I think it was the 2021 legislative session, or 22. One GOP meeting I was at, I remember Mark Dole talking about that issue. And when I heard the issue, I don't want Democrats running on Republican tickets. And I'm sure the Democrats don't want Republicans running on Democrat tickets. But again, that has to do with sloppy legislation. If I was a senator, I would not have voted for that. I would have voted a different. There's another way to word that to still achieve the same goal. The Democrat Party, you can't just walk into the opposing team's locker room whenever you want. Like that's their locker room.
Some people can.
Some people can.
Some people can.
And when you're invited.
I could not.
You could. But we're okay, take politics out of it. We're just gonna talk about baseball or football or basketball, whatever. Like you understand that when a sports analogy, the locker room's their sacred place.
I understand.
One team gets their own corner. You can't just come in because you want to. That's a whole different thing when what they said the intent of the bill is and then the actual execution of what people are using it for. There's either 2 things. Either 1, it's a bad bill, or 2, it's a blind spot bill because there's a huge loophole people are using for not keeping Democrats off the ballots, because you can blast them in the primary going, this person's a Democrat, don't vote for him.
See,
you can let the elections do their job.
You call it a loophole, I call it a playbook.
They
have a playbook, right, that benefits them when they want it to benefit them. And I wholeheartly believe that.
Yeah.
And that's where I tell you what happened to me.
But I'll tell you this
was
though.
Unethical.
But I'll tell you this. I was told by Mark Dole that he couldn't sign off on somebody running for commissioner this last time. He didn't have 2 primaries either. I cited some other examples, and then at that election board meeting, I cited those examples too, because not all of the GOP chairs in all of Indiana do that. Now, I know of a GOP, you can go back and watch the video, I cited all that information, but there are GOP chairs in other counties who signed off on people. Like I know of somebody, real good guy down in Switzerland County, Matthew Winters. Young guy, just moved here from Ohio, but he moved around the same time you did, around right that transition time. I think he moved down there in 22. He's running for commissioner. The GOP chair down there signed off on him being on the ballot to be a commissioner. He doesn't have any Indiana primaries. And when I brought that up, Mark still wouldn't sign for somebody else because it would have been primarying their person who they caucused in for commissioner, Alan Goodman. That caucus so clerk happened, then the Senate happened, then Art Lytle stepped down, they subbed in Alan Goodman from county council to commissioner, so now he's commissioner of District 2 and then up for election again this spring. And then Mark Dole, who wasn't in county government at all at the time, I heard he was a Democrat commissioner years ago. I don't know. I haven't been able to verify that, look that up. I've been told that from multiple people, but I don't even know how I find that out. I wasn't paying attention to politics. I don't know how long ago. Mark seems like a real nice guy. I've had conversations with him. Obviously, he and I are on opposite teams here in the primary, but, either way, regardless, when I knew him, he wasn't in county government. He was just appointed precinct committeeman. I didn't even know he was appointed precinct committeeman at the time. I knew him as he's now becoming the new GOP chair, and Jim Thatcher's out and Mark Dole's in. That's how I knew Mark Dole of. And we've always had, we didn't really talk much at the GOP meetings before I ran for state rep or the state senate. But we've always had pleasant conversations. He's been nice, heard nice things about him. I don't know, I tend to like everybody. I don't know, it's my blind spot, I guess. My wife always says, Sam, you're a little too gullible. You like people too much. I'm like, well, I don't know, they're creating the image of God just like me. But that's exactly what's going on. And he didn't have, and I don't know if it's all of Indiana doing it. So when you say a playbook, I don't know if it's just Dearborn County's playbook or if it's other places, but I do know there are good GOP chairs in other parts of Indiana who are allowing people to run, who are encouraging the party, who are promoting, especially with younger people. They always complain, well, it's time you get the young people involved in the party. I'm going, well, here I are. Hello. Oh, no, not you. We want somebody else. I'm like, what, somebody you can control? I haven't kissed your rear end enough? I'm not interested in that. So I don't know if it's just Dearborn. Do you know this happening in other counties?
I don't, but again,
your just experience is just Dearborn County.
This is just my experience. And listen, I don't have a grudge against anybody. I'm not upset with anybody.
Right.
I'm not frustrated with anybody. I'm frustrated with the process. The process needs to be consistent.
Right.
It needs to be consistent.
And it needs to be fair.
And it needs to be fair.
Because put the shoe on the other foot, those people wouldn't be happy if another group, not them, were controlling things and they wanted to be involved.
Right.
And they were being boxed out.
You cannot cherry pick who you want.
Yes.
It needs to be a fair process for everyone.
You're running a kingdom with your own domain if the king's appointing who he wants. And we've got, just like pre-War for Independence and Declaration of Independence, you got the king deciding who's going to be the governors and who's going to be the commissioners, who's going to be the whoever of the Commonwealth of whatever, and you don't have we the people running our own local government.
Yeah. We the people, that's it. Exactly what you said. The problem is the people do not get the opportunity to choose who they want because there is things that are transpiring that are unethical that prevent people like me from being able to run for certain offices. And most people don't realize it because they're not paying attention or it doesn't impact them or they haven't been through the process like I've been through the process. Like I explained to you earlier.
And there's not a plethora of people volunteering to do this. But when you have somebody volunteer, you'd figure they would let people run.
Why would someone run to go through what I went through?
Right.
So that is a deterrent.
Well, you want to know one other interesting thing?
Most people do not want to run because they don't want to put themselves out there.
I don't know if this is a part of the playbook or not, but just talking about another fact. So this is all. I didn't get elected to Senate, which I'm happy about. I thought I was going to enjoy my winter off. Now I've been working, getting other people involved, running for local government. But I've run a seasonal business. I work really, really hard during the season, long hours, out in the heat. I got a young family. I really prize my family time. So I'm happy I don't have to be up in Indianapolis. There were some mornings this last year where it's 65 degrees here, whatever. I got my twins in the hot tub at 10 o'clock in the morning. I'm not sitting in a stupid Senate. It's not stupid, but I'm not sitting in a Senate meeting or a committee meeting or having some kind of deal with people that I could care less about. They're just other workers there working for legislation, missing moments out with my kids. So I would much rather hang out in the hot tub with my two little beautiful blonde-haired twin baby girls than deal with a bunch of old guys in Indianapolis or whatever the average age of a state senator is or state legislator. So, but one of the things when I was running to get involved, I'm like the instigator, I guess, as I've been called, or the troublemaker, whatever it is. When I was getting people involved, people were asking me questions. They're asking me questions like I know the answers. I'm like, I don't know the answers. I just think you'd be really good in county government. You should run. Like, well, find out how does this work? How does this work? So one of the people that I got to run for commissioner, or I asked to run for commissioner, he's running his own campaign, and my political views are no reflection of his. It's just somebody, but Dwayne Bischoff running for District 2. And I had talked to him, and I said, Dwayne, you're in District 2. You just need to get the votes in District 2. Because somebody had sent me from the clerk's office. I either got it directly from the clerk's office, or it was somebody else got it from the clerk's office and sent it to me. Because every time you go and you ask for like an election summary or something else, they have to run a report. I don't know how it works in their system. I don't know if it's a computer system or what it is. But it takes a while, and it's jammed up. So somebody else already got it. Hey, just forward me the email, and then I don't have to wait from the clerk's office. But I'm going through and I'm looking, and it goes by the voter summary by precinct of each precinct. Well, there's 45 precincts in Dearborn County, and I'm looking and I'm going, what I was led to believe prior was you have to live in the commissioner district, so there's 3 commissioner districts. You have to live in the commissioner district, but the whole county gets to vote on you. But I'm looking over the 2020 general election, and Cedar Creek doesn't vote for District 1 or 2. And Logan, up in District 2, only voted for District 2. Art Lytle was the chair at the time up there, or the commissioner up time in 2020 elected. And then, so that was just District 2 precincts voted for District 2. And then just District 1 people voted for Jim Thatcher. So I went down to the clerk's office, because I'm literally arguing with people like, no, it can't be the whole county. And I've heard it's by county by county. They do it differently. I think like Lake County or Tippecanoe County. I don't know if those are set up differently. That's like Chicago area.
Right.
I'm not sure where Tippecanoe is.
Northeast Indiana.
Yeah, Lake County I know is at least Chicago. So I don't know if Indiana law allows counties to do things differently, but I was under the impression that it was here in Dearborn County the same way. But I'm going, there can't be. Look, they're not even on the ballot. They're not voting. So somebody goes, no, it's the whole county votes. I'm going, they're not on, in 2020, they didn't all vote. So I go down to the clerk's office and I asked. And I said, I legitimately, and this is after the Senate election meeting. No. Yes, it was a couple days after the not the Senate election. Sorry, it's getting late here. The February meeting for the public, what do they call it? The public election board meeting.
Mm-hmm.
So this is after that. And I go down and I ask, Wendy Beatty's now the clerk, and there's some other people in the office. They've all been really nice, and I feel bad. I should probably send like Wendy flowers or something else. I have nothing personally against Wendy, but I'm kind of, she's in the middle of all this, and this isn't personal meet for her or anything. I don't even know her. She's been very nice and professional with me all the time. But she's got to, I understand, I got to like start irritating at people at some point. She's been very, very classy, very, very, very kind with me. So I'm legitimately asking her. But like 2 days earlier, I was just bringing up all these. She voted Democrat in that period. I'm like wondering. I'm not trying to criticize her, but I'm saying Mark Dole is not keeping this. What do you say? Cherry picking, or what we said? It's not consistent. It's not. It's a double standard here, and I was just simply pointing that out. So anyway, I asked her. And she politely explained that. So I started bringing that up. She goes, yes, what happened was there was a mix-up on the ballot in 2020. The old clerk before me, and I don't know if she knew this, but so my understanding, the clerk's office handles a bunch of different things. Elections is one of those. Mm-hmm. But the clerk has somebody working in the office that handles elections. I was told the person who used to handle elections, or the person handling elections in 2020, was Wendy Beatty herself. I don't know how you confirm that or figure that out. Babe, is this video still going? Mm-hmm. Okay, sweet. I get memory chewed up on my phone. I need like a legit. I get some.
An hour and a half.
Okay, so, well, whatever. There's been no pouring in this conversation for me. So anyway, I asked her about this, and she goes, yes. What happened was the old clerk, or under the old clerk, she's gone now, moved away to Florida. This was before me, and I just let it slide. But I'm told she used to handle. In 2020, she was in charge of elections. But she said under the old clerk that there was a mistake made on the ballot, and yes, all of the precincts are supposed to vote, but there was a mistake, and that's why they didn't show up. And so when they ran their reports, that's why I was seeing the discrepancy. And I'm going, it was 2020. I thought Dearborn County elections are fine. And I had Art Lytle at a meeting that I was at. He seems like a really nice guy too. He's an older gentleman now, but I've heard he's done wonderful things for the county. I don't know. I wasn't involved in county government. Anyway, he told me at one of the commissioner meetings not the commissioner meetings, the little breakfast meetings, and they're not at the Bayview anymore. They're someplace else in Aurora. But he told me at one of those meetings, he didn't tell it directly to me. It was a group of people, and we were discussing about the elections, election integrity, et cetera, things that need to happen. And that's a whole hot topic right now for another time. But he said, well, he seemed to think, well, we can trust our elections here. Now I'm finding out 3 years ago, somebody screwed up the elections right in Dearborn County. Did nobody say anything about this? I'm wondering, am I the only one who knew this? Am I just totally in the dark over here, my own little world with my family and my business, all the other things I got going on? Like, if something had really messed up in the ballots in Dearborn County, I think I would have known. I was like, I paid attention to what was going on with the ballots. I've watched documentaries on the ballots and what's going on. So now I'm wondering, like, okay, was it intentional? I don't think it was intentional because it was in the general election. Wendy Beatty, I guess I should go look for the primary ones and see if there was a discrepancy there. But Wendy told me it was done properly in the primary, but it was in the general. But in the general, there wasn't, maybe there were. I don't think there were any Democrats that even ran against Art Lytle and Jim Thatcher at the time. So, but I asked her, I said, so was this brought to anybody's attention? She said, yes, we brought it to the commissioners, or we brought it, or it was brought to the commissioner. I don't remember exactly what was said. So I don't know if she was a part of bringing it to the commissioners or who caught it. But anyway, it was brought to the commissioners, etc. And they said, well, it's basically happened. It's over with. It's a viewpoint, which I'm not wanting. If there's nobody else on the ballot, I don't want to recount. It's just a waste of tax dollars. It's a moot point. But it is alarming that they screwed up the ballots. And I'm going, so if they pulled all this other stuff, they still stand to lose everything. They're a little group of people that's controlled for however long, I don't know, but that's controlling Dearborn County and has controlled it for a while, stands to lose everything. The party control, the balance of powers on commissioners flipping, the balance of powers on county council flipping, and the whole party. So they can't caucus anybody else in. So if they're planning on switching out senators and state reps and or county council or commissioners or anybody else, or clerks or auditors or whoever, if they're planning on doing more shuffling, they can't do that if there's independent, normal, everyday Americans who don't even really know each other, but they know their own values, and they want those heard, and they want better government, and they're wanting to be involved. Like, if people vote in that list of PCs, game over for them. Like, game over for them for maybe the rest of their career. Like, they'll never be able to keep people in the dark. If enough people turn the lights on, it's over. But I'm wondering, like, my big question is, they can't fraudulate the ballots here in Dearborn County, can they? But I would never have thought this election stuff would have happened in here. I never thought a guy who was dressed up as Abraham Lincoln, been voting Republican his entire life, but in other states just moved back to the area. How do you kick him off the ballot? I never would have thought that either.
Through the playbook, Sam.
Through the
playbook.
So, but then I'm wondering, so was it intentional? Was Wendy telling me the truth? I don't know Wendy. She seems like a nice person, but like, I don't know these people. I don't want to be gullible. So like, I don't know. The bottom line is this. I am really glad we've had this conversation. I want more people to, the stuff that, people always say you got to fix county government first. Well, who the sheriff is or who the commissioner is doesn't matter a hill of beans of who's in the White House. Who the party is matters because you're controlling the coaching staff, and there's another video that I did on how that affects the state and then the federal, and that absolutely has an effect. But the point is, whether it's the border or Washington, D.C. or Indianapolis or Dearborn County, if I'm going to live here, and I have no intentions of moving, I plan on Dearborn County as my home, I'm not living under this kind of stuff. Like, I'm going to do something. And I hope that there's enough people and enough time here. I think it's about 5,800 primary voters, we counted it up, that will vote, that have voted in the last 4 years in a primary. All it takes is 65 votes per precinct. So if somebody wants to get involved and knock 30 doors or call 30 people that live in their precinct, and I've got all those lists, if you're wanting to be involved and help them win a precinct, it doesn't take that many people to do the grassroots, to call people, let people know what's going on, and let people know, hey, if you want change, if you want to put some fresh legs in there, even if you know some of these people, and they're nice people and they're good people, and they're just kind of caught in a rock between a hard place. Because I've heard that from people. Well, I think so-and-so is a really good person, but, I think they're just caught in a rock and a hard place. Or if it's been going on for so long and no one person has been able to fix it, so they've just kind of tolerated it, the message is they don't have to tolerate this anymore. And I'm hoping people like you and other people, if other people have been had the same situation. I was really encouraged to know that this wasn't an isolated incident in 2024, and it wasn't just something they were after me. Not to throw you under the bus too, but I'm glad it happened to you too. I'm glad we weren't the only people bullied here. I'm glad there's other people who've been getting involved, and I appreciate you running. One last question. Would you ever consider being involved in government in any other way in the future? Or is that such a bad taste in your mouth you don't want to be involved?
I'm trying to overcome the bad taste in my mouth. You know, I grew up here, like I said, my dad owned businesses here. You know, my siblings grew up here. I'm not opposed to it, but it has to be the right fit for me.
And the balance of powers has to shift?
And the balance of powers have to shift.
Yeah.
And it has to be ethical. You know, my thing is it just has to feel right, and it has to be seamless, and there has to be integrity, and I have to feel good about what is taking place. And right now, I don't really feel so good about it.
Yeah, I've heard that from other people. I know one of the things that really irritated most is I know other people that have tried to get involved, been involved, etc. And they, one phrase said to me, and I totally understand it, was, and when I asked them would somebody be involved, they said, I'd never go drag my name through the mud.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to go sour my name associating with whatever the current thing is. And I thought, here we go, we got good people who are willing to serve. But they're worried about their name and character and reputation. I'm not going to ruin it over just being involved in county. Like, I don't need that. And I'm not going to risk my name and reputation. And that's what irritated me the most. We don't have I don't know if it's a system of government, because I'm not going to blame the system of government. The current people, the current establishment, the current people who are running things are doing it in such a way where good people don't want to be involved. And even though I don't know these people, that's alarming to me. That sends red flags off to me, and I want change.
What was alarming to me is everything that I was told
Came true.
came to fruition.
Same thing for me. Yeah. Well, hey, thanks for sharing your story. We'll go ahead and wrap this up. I appreciate you coming out and talking about this. And,
I appreciate the invite.
Yeah, I'm glad this happens, and hopefully a lot of people will watch this. If not, I've really enjoyed the conversation, and I'm glad
Likewise.
I know. So thank you so much. All right.
Thank you.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Absolutely.